grades aren't the only thing deciding who gets into university anymore, and 2025 has proved it. This year, universities handed out record numbers of offers, even to students who didn't hit their grades. So what's going on? If you're watching this, you probably fall into one of two camps. Number one, you have strong grades, but you're wondering why that might not be enough. And number two, you don't have perfect grades, but deep down, you know that you have the potential to thrive. In both cases, what I'm about to share with you will shine a light on an area that most students ignore. Getting into university is a bit like a slot machine. There are only a handful of levers that actually change the outcome, but most students spend their time pulling the wrong ones. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 levers that actually move the dial in admissions. Some you can control, others you can't. But once you understand them, you'll know where to put your energy, and only then will you be able to maximize your chances of success. Before we get into those levers, let's talk about 2 of the biggest myths in the admissions process: GCSE scores and the personal statement. Because in reality, these 2 things matter far less than you think. If you're stressing about the grades you already have, or you're rewriting your personal statement for the 10th time, then this part is especially for you. Okay, let's talk about GCSEs. Now, I get a lot of messages from students who ask questions such as, can I apply for medicine if I got a 5 in English literature? Can I apply for a top course at university if I got a mixture of 5s, 6s, and 7s? Can I apply for a top course if I got a 4 in Spanish at GCSE? Now, here's the honest answer. Most of the time, you just need to meet the minimum requirements set by the university. And beyond that, GCSEs really don't make much of a difference. And it gets even better because universities very rarely look at your grades in isolation. They look at them in context. And so if you're at a school where the average student is getting 3s or 4s in their GCSEs, but you somehow pull it out of the bag and get 5s, 6s, and 7s, then that can be a really positive signal because it shows relative strength. And on top of this, with financial pressures mounting at universities, it's likely that this year, they're going to be more flexible than ever. With fewer international students applying, they're much more likely to give students a second chance, even if their grades are not perfect. And so my bigger point is this: GCSEs are important, but they are just one small piece of the puzzle. Yes, they help get your foot in the door, but they do not decide your future. If you've got specific questions about your GCSEs, then drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Next, let's talk about the personal statement. Now, here is my honest opinion. Personal statements no longer carry the weight that they used to. And there's one reason for this. 2 words: artificial intelligence. Many of you here will probably use Grammarly or ChatGPT to help you with your work. And look, I get it. If I was 17, I would probably be doing exactly the same. But here's the thing. When it comes to writing your personal statements, nothing could be worse for you. UCAS openly admit on their website that they know students are going to use AI to write their answers. And the funniest thing is, they've even hired fraud detection teams whose job is to use AI to catch AI. How funny is that? But here's the problem. Because tutors now understand that students are using AI to write their answers, the weight of the personal statement in the application process has fallen off the cliff. Imagine you had to sit an exam, and in that exam, everyone in front of them had a mark scheme, and they could get 100% in the test. Would you take the result of that exam very seriously? I.e., if you knew everyone was cheating, does the final result even matter? And that's why I think personal statements are becoming less and less important. And my honest opinion is that UCAS probably will phase them out entirely in a few years' time. And so in this really strange way, we've now reached a point where the only personal statements that actually stand out are the ones that are written by you. And that's exactly what I break down in this video, where I explain how to make your personal statement get noticed, especially in an age of AI. All right, on to the juicy part of the video then. What are the levers that actually move the dial for your university application? Now, this one took me a while to accept, but it's almost impossible to ignore. The first lever is your predicted grades and your teacher's references. Here's why. When universities hand out their offers, they don't have your final results yet. They're working with a tiny snapshot of data to predict how you'll perform in their academic environment. Now, in that process, what your teachers say, the people who have known you for years and years and years and have seen you across many different academic contexts, can carry huge weight. Think about it like this. Imagine you go on a date, and the person you go on a date with is everything you want on paper. They're smart, they're good-looking, they're funny. What are you going to trust more? The impression you formed of them within the first hour of meeting them, or the opinions of their best friends who have known them for years and years and years. Universities are very similar. The opinions of your teachers can carry a lot more weight than you think. And this is where it gets really interesting, and you never notice this until you leave school. But schools are not just academic institutions. They're fundamentally a business, and their job is to protect their reputation. And so if there is a direct incentive to predict you very well, then they'll take it. So what does this mean for you on a practical level? Well, two things in my opinion. Number one, and this is the safest option, is to work so unbelievably hard in your mock examinations that you leave nothing to chance and ensure you get a fantastic set of predicted grades. Number two, and this is something that's often overlooked, is make sure you cultivate trusting, respectful, and positive relationships with your teachers. Because just remember, their opinion can carry a lot of weight. So make sure you're in their good books. Now, clearly, I'm not advocating people here to be Niccolo Machiavelli and start manipulating teachers or playing games. It's not what I'm advocating at all. What I am saying is one thing, and that is work hard. If you can't work hard or don't want to work hard, then at least make sure you're presenting yourself as positively as possible. This next lever is a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. And to be honest, it kind of saddens me, but at the same time, makes me feel really optimistic. Your context and background matters more now than it ever has before. Look, as much as you think they are, universities are not merely academic institutions, they're fundamentally a political one. They're under pressure all the time from businesses, media, politicians, to change the way they recruit individuals from different backgrounds. And so what that means in practice is that it's no longer a meritocracy. It's no longer about who's the brightest on paper anymore. There are other factors at play, and there's a whole game unfolding in front of us. And this is where it gets a little bit uncomfortable, because universities are quietly screening for a whole range of demographic characteristics without you knowing. Your postcode, where you went to school, your gender, your ethnicity, whether your parents went to university, your parental income level, your sexuality, whether you're an international or domestic student. And the challenge is that every university has its own quota and its target, and these will often remain undisclosed to you. We've all heard the stories, the smartest kid in school, straight A stars, always getting prizes, inevitably going to go to a top university. Then he applies to the top universities, and what happens? He gets rejected. Why? Well, it's not because he's not smart enough, but it's because there are a whole host of factors outside of his control. Maybe he went to a private school. Maybe at the time of applying, the university was admitting more international students than domestic students because they needed the money. And so it's a really challenging truth to swallow that sometimes things are just simply outside of your control. But what's the silver lining here? Because I do not want to be depressing and this sounds a bit bleak. Well, if you're a top performing student and you've got straight A stars for the last 10 years and you don't get into your dream university, then do not take it as a judgment on your ability as a student. I promise you, through your hard work and your diligence, you'll go on to achieve whatever you want in life. And on the converse, if you're a student that you feel has been dealt an unfortunate hand in life, or you've not quite yet stepped into your academic ability, then now is the best time to apply to university because the system is finally bending in your favor. Now, this last one is for those of you applying for vocational courses like medicine, dentistry, law, engineering, and of course, for Oxbridge. Because for you, the game has changed entirely. Because here, two things matter more than anything else. Your admissions test score and your interview performance. These two things create the closest thing as possible to a meritocracy. I think the problem is that it's very easy to be seduced and comforted by the idea that if you mess up the interview or the admissions tests, it's okay because the university is going to consider all the different components of your application. But seriously, it's not okay because the admissions test and the interview matter, and it's very important to prepare as well as you can for them. Think about it like the Olympics. Everyone on that starting line is talented and they're fast, but the only thing that matters is the performance on the day, and it's all about who can get across the finish line first. That's exactly how admissions tests and interviews work. Those two things alone can open way more doors than any personal statement or GCSE score ever could. If you don't believe me, then watch this podcast. One of my team members went to study economics and management at Oxford, which is one of the most competitive courses in the country, arguably in the world. He was predicted ABCC in his A-levels, but he still managed to land a spot at the most prestigious and competitive course in the world. So how did he do that? Well, He managed to perform so outrageously well in the TSA, which is the admissions test, that the university admissions tutors had no option but to interview him. And then he ended up smashing the interview. And so his predicted grades were not a good reflection of his true academic ability. And this is such a good example of why they are so important. If you're worried that you have lower GCSE scores than the university would like, or your predicted grades don't shape up the way you think they should because you don't have a good relationship with your teachers, then the admissions test and the interview is your opportunity to shine. Because if they go well, they can truly change the trajectory of your entire application and your life. So to wrap up, here's the big picture. Universities are not the neat meritocracy that we were once told. It's messy, it's political, and it's frustrating at times. But that's not a bad thing, because it means that your future is not determined by a flawless set of GCSEs or a perfect personal statement. Instead, there are other, more important factors at play, as I've discussed in this video. So don't waste time obsessing about perfection in the wrong areas, because there's only a few levers that actually matter. I always tell my students, control the controllables. There's never been a better time to take your shot.